The 1st Special Forces Operational Detachment, Delta, also known as Combat Applications Group, or CAG, is generally considered to be the most selective organization in the entire Department of Defense. Colloquially known as Delta Force, the unit was founded in 1977 by a small number of Special Forces officers, including Colonel Charles Beckwith, a bull-necked college football player from Georgia who took his inspiration from the British Special Forces Air Service, or SAS. During the Vietnam War, Beckwith served with an exchange officer with the SAS in Malaysia, where the British Army waged a savage and indiscriminate war to put down anti-colonial and communist resistance to imperial rule. Beckwith's time in Malaysia convinced him that the United States needed its own version of the SAS, which had sabotaged aircraft and blown up railroads behind Axis lines in World War II, and evolved into a long-range reconnaissance and raiding force highly adept at ending the lives of problematic guerrilla leaders. Returning to Vietnam on the eve of the Tet Offensive, Beckwith led a prototypical U.S. Army unit called Project Delta, which penetrated deep into Viet Cong territory to rescue prisoners of war, select bombing targets, install wiretaps, and emplace mines. The end of the Vietnam War led to a period of directionless malaise for the Special Forces, but the success of a daring raid to rescue hostages from a hijacked airplane in Uganda by elite Israeli unit SETH HARP in 1976, combined with heightened anxieties around international terrorism, provided the final impetus for American war planners to give the go-ahead to Beckwith's pet project. Delta Force became operational the following year, replacing an interim counterterrorism unit in the 5th Special Forces Group called Blue Light. Made up of a few hundred select soldiers, many of whom were seasoned Vietnam veterans, Delta Force was originally intended to be a rarely used team of crack commandos to whom the president could turn in the event of a hostage crisis, terrorist attack, loose nuclear weapon, or another international incident requiring a tactically difficult, highly precise military response, in which failure was not considered a realistic option. Yet the unit's first live mission, known as Operation Eagle Claw, was a catastrophic debacle that did grave damage to the presidency of the man who ordered it, Jimmy Carter. After Iranian revolutionaries overran the U.S. embassy in Tehran and took scores of hostages, President Carter sent about 100 Delta Force soldiers into the country to rescue the captives. But because the Army operators had to be supported by the Air Force, Navy, and Marine Corps for the transport and logistics, the mission devolved into confusion and reclamation between commanders from each of the 4 service branches involved, and ended in disaster when one of the helicopters, blinded by a sandstorm, crashed into a transport plane loaded with jet fuel, causing an explosion that killed 8 crewmen. 6 months later, Carter lost the 1980 presidential election to a former California governor, Ronald Reagan, who went on to preside over a transformation of America's Special Operations Forces that broadened Delta Force's purview and laid the foundations for the secret killing machine that Billy Levine, born in 1983, would serve for the majority of his adult life. In retrospect, the creation of this Fort Bragg-based apparatus, the Joint Special Operations Command, or JSOC, was the most significant event in U.S. military history since the emergence of a permanent standing army following World War II. But at the time, it escaped all public notice. There was no ceremony to mark JSOC's official formation and no press release to announce the appointment of its first commander. Over the next 8 years, as Reagan and Bush waged off-the-books dirty wars in Nicaragua, El Salvador, and Guatemala, and also intervened in Colombia, Haiti, and Grenada, the administration leaned heavily on Delta Force and other undercover soldiers. The militarization of covert action was tied up with the rapidly metasizing global war on drugs, another brainchild of George H.W. Bush's, and partially exposed by the Hydra-headed Iran-Contra affair, the essence of which was the use of illegal arms deals and the sale of other untraceable commodities to fund secret operations. A classified White House memorandum that Reagan signed in 1984 reads like a sketchy blueprint to the global war on terror that Bush's son and political heir would institute at the dawn of the 21st century. Among other things, the memo authorized killing in preemptive self-defense, so long as the targets were defined as terrorists. That same Orwellian year, the New York Times belatedly broke the news of JSOC's existence. The article, titled U.S. Military Creates Secret Units for Use in Sensitive Tasks Abroad, was sourced to members of Congress and Intelligence Committee staffers. The worry concerned lawmakers that told the Times was that JSOC might become a uniformed version of the Central Intelligence Agency, used by the executive branch to circumvent congressional restrictions and reporting requirements. The Times learned that JSOC was mostly a nighttime operation, with its own weapons procurement and research, as well as communications, and that JSOC operators dress in civilian clothes, train at unmarked installations on private property, and are permitted to have long hair and beards. The Black Ops commando units that made up JSOC were created to fight terrorism, but have acquired broader mandates, the article continued. These included participation in covert operations in Central America, specifically to aid Nicaraguan rebels, a criminal rabble of right-wing drug traffickers and hitmen known as the Contras, who partly funded their fight against socialism in Central America by smuggling cocaine from Colombia through Mexico to the United States, which at the time was experiencing a boom in the consumption of the new form of coke known as crack. For those of you who are hanging on the Discord, y'all remember Deep Cover, the movie we watched a few weeks back about this very thing? A number of Democratic legislatures were said to be disturbed by JSOC's arrogation of secret powers and its apparent willingness to carry out clandestine actions without informing Congress. We are aware of the existence of the Special Operations Units, the then Senator Joe Biden told the Times, but not sufficiently informed about their activities, he added. We're trying to learn more. Come on, Jack, we're trying here. We're trying to learn more here. You're killing me with this. Hey, L-man. Outside with my dad trying to give him the Tinder for Fort Bragg Cartel. Cool. All right, I got one more bit we're going to read through here. In 1988, Poppy Bush was elected president, becoming the first and only former director of the CIA to command the armed forces. The following year, he ordered JSOC to invade Panama in order to depose and abduct the Panamanian strongman Manuel Noriega, a key broker in the Latin American drug trade, who had been an important client of Bush's back when he was in charge of the CIA, but lost the tacit approval of the Americans to traffic narcotics internationally after he began cozying up to Fidel Castro's Cuba. Delta Force and JSOC took part in the Persian Gulf War in 1991 to drive the invading Iraqi army out of Kuwait, but were kept on a short leash by General Norman Schwarzkopf, the theater commander, a Vietnam veteran who maintained an old-school aversion to Navy SEALs and Green Berets, whom he saw as undisciplined, throat-slitting, ear-collecting rogues with an unhealthy odor of the Laotian jungle still lingering about them. Just like, again, Krauser, Resident Evil 4, that post-war, pre-9/11 malaise with what like Green Berets or Marines were, which, as this is highlighting here, the scary military within the military, the secret police within the state, the CIA within the military. In 1993, a botched helicopter-borne abduction raid in Mogadishu, Somalia, left 6 Delta Force soldiers dead. The fallout from this incident, dramatized in the book Black Hawk Down and the film adaptation by the same name, forever tarnished JSOC in the eyes of President Bill Clinton, the former governor of Arkansas, who'd won an upset victory over Bush in the preceding year's presidential election. The only other time that Delta Force attracted any significant press attention during Clinton's 2 terms as president also occurred in 1993, but stateside, in the midst of the federal siege of a cult compound in Waco, Texas. It was a curious cameo that showcased the unit's deft touch at public relations and ability to get out in front of potentially damaging stories. The FBI and ATF had surrounded the religious compound, situated in the Texas countryside north of Austin, and demanded that the Branch Davidians, a splinter group of Seventh-day Adventists, give up a stockpile of weapons that they'd hoarded in anticipation of Judgment Day. After a lengthy standoff in which the members of the apocalyptic offshoot church refused to surrender their guns and ammo, the federal agents moved in with surprisingly aggressive tactics, making use of heavy machine guns, armored personal carriers, and even tanks. Amid the resulting gun battle, scores of people burned to death, including dozens of women and children. One of the harshest critics of the government's conduct of the raid was none other than Colonel Charles Beckwith, Delta Force's founder, then in his mid-60s and retired. "It's crazy to shoot people like this," Beckwith told the New York Times while the siege was still ongoing. I'm just embarrassed that we live in a society where our government allows something like this to happen. Wow, I can't believe our government would allow something like this to happen. Howdy folks, I'm Henry and this is TECHNOPOVERTY. We're playing through the Metal Gear games while reading through SETH HARP's The BRAGG CARTEL. We recently finished Metal Gear Solid 2 with my co-host Jacob. We were going through the works of Baudrillard, Fredric, Jameson there. We're starting up SPEC OPS The Line on our Monday-Thursday program, and today we're going to be starting Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake here on our Tuesday solo sessions. The interdimensional engine has been a bit warbly. Lux has been lost to the aether, but I still hear him. He is still in communication in ways that aren't physical. We talk to each other through electricity. It's some sort of interconnected network, but enough about that. Let's get to Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake. I was surprised by the sophistication of Metal Gear 1, even though it did have its rough spots. The key card cycling, I'm never gonna not bitch about that, but here I am doing it again. Sorry for those longtime listeners who have to hear the same thing over and over again, but if you're a first-time listener, welcome. This is what the show is. Let's just fire up this game. Let us just fire up this game. I hear it is a nice step forward into modernity from what the original is, from several sources. I'm already digging this. This is very cinematic in presentation. Hell yeah, okay. This is character already. I'm curious if the characters will be more distinct this time around, because sure, Gray Fox had a name in Metal Gear 1, but all the sprites were basically the same. Oh, look at these colors though. This is very flashy, I love it. Ostentatious. It's Snake. Damn, it does look like him though. Wow. Is this going to be the solid skeleton of the first game with more stylistic sauce? Because damn. Metal Gear. I wonder if it's actually going to be a thing you fight this game. It wasn't in the first one. Wow, this is like such an upgrade visually. Holy shit. And both games, from what I understand, were on the MSX2. So, what a hop in power or presentation if it's the same hardware. Right, this came out in 1990. It's imagining the late 1990s. All the Metal Gear games are like that, if I recall correctly. Oh no. Why wouldn't you desire peace? You don't say. Zanzibar land. Oh yeah, it's a whole made-up country this time, isn't it? Wait, when did they renounce nukes forever? Oh, really? In 1990 they were saying this now? Synthesized oil, eh? Damn, another hostage situation. Well, that sounds bad. Okay, is it time? Yeah. L2 button, equipment select, weapon select, square, weapon, punch. Okay, so you can crawl now. There's a third button function. Move to player, enter radio, pause, open menu. Okay. Peak oil was predicted in 1956. Asia? I didn't know it was that early. I remember there was, I think it was called Collapse. There was a documentary in the mid-aughts I remember catching in high school about basically this old, I forget if he was a PI. That sounds fake, but like it was just about peak oil and him kind of discovering this concept. Oh, look at this. This is Snake. I've reached the infiltration point. Snake right on time, as always. Let's get started. Commencing Operation Intrude FO14. Let's go over this one more time. Your mission is to infiltrate Zanzibar land and rescue the kidnapped Czech physiologist, Dr. Keo Marv. I just fumbled that. Snake, we provide you with a new anti-personnel sensor. Try switching it on. Roger. Okay, it's on. Okay. So they gave you a map in this one. White dots are your enemy soldiers, red dots your current position. Warn you of unseen dangers. Nine screen area? Okay. Okay, so I find the red dot on my radar. 140.85. And so this is Snake's first mission with Campbell, and also, yeah, because Big Boss was killed at the end of the last game. Okay. Ooh, yeah, this is colorful. Oh, very good. Oh. That's a lot of dudes. All right. Can they see me over things? Is that why I need to heal? No. Okay, cool. Yeah, Jimmy Carter did put, yeah, I do know about Carter doing that. Carter also had the address that used the phrase our common destiny, which I believe I liked, where he was actually calling for like a shared sense of like participation and like a cutback in consumption, which the Americans didn't like, so they just elected Reagan instead. We were talking about the switch or attitudes or the nihilism in perception of like what a Marine is through the 70s and 80s, aligning with like kind of post-Vietnam cynicism. Also keep in mind the rise of like Delta Force as outlined in the reading, the sort of national paranoia that was in contributing to. Okay, interesting crawling mechanics now. So if I hide here and wait for the dude to walk by, I should be good, right? Oh, I see a red dot. Damn, is that the doctor? No, that's me, that's me. I'm just not paying attention. I'm waiting for the other guy to come by. Oof. Use the vents, eh? This is just like Solid. Sneaking into outer heaven. Or not outer heaven, but the, I forget what the Alaskan Air Force Base is called. Shadow Moses. Alright, let's see how this works. How does death work in this? Okay. And I bring up that paranoia and that malaise because you see it in the pop culture, both with, you know, the Rambo movies and such being like, we can win and go save the POWs we missed. You see it in the rise of like the rumor that like Vietnam veterans got spat on when returning home. It makes me think of the works of Tom Clancy popping off during this era. You know, the big mystique around the Hunt for the Red October was that, like, Tom Clancy got things so right that the government debriefed him because Ronald Reagan was like, how do you know about our secrets? You know, part of why Baudrillard recognized and wrote the Gulf War did not take place is because the whole decade of fiction was leading up to this kind of, like, spectacle of Delta Force Top Squad man on a mission commandos doing all kinds of shit in South America and the Middle East, which is what we're seeing, I mean, right here with Metal Gear. The currency of this game is hostage rescue. Damn it. Who wants a knuckle sandwich? Alright, let's see how guns work. But when deterrence is the name of the game, as highlighted by Baudrillard, it's not about open conflict. It's about, you know, it's about like the masked innuendo and subterfuge, the stealth, the games of chicken. A, you know, honest war would have open and direct conflict on battlefields. What we see is something much worse, the turning of every place into the realm of warfare. Nice, dad and dog doing good. Not really worth going that way. Well, at least I can just hang out in the vents to get the alarm down. Yeah, it's getting nice and sunny out here as well. Not cold, not super rainy. Hasn't quite got too hot, it's just very chill. What's up, Colonel? Oh? Holly White. A journalist spy. 1:40:15 later. Okay, Holly. How did she know I was here? I do like how the map basically makes obsolete the binoculars from the first game. Because the binoculars pretty much served this purpose of like letting you peek ahead so that you didn't just walk in blind to a tile. Come on downstairs. Oh, is he gonna see me? He is gonna see me for sure. I assume I need a key card. I hope those dots mean it's a level 2 card. Oh no. Where do I continue from? Okay, that's not bad. Jaria. Reagan asked to see the war room after watching Dr. Strangelove. I fear that some of the administration play war like a video game. What would you show them if you wanted to influence direction? Stardew Valley is mine. Damn, that's, huh. Because I mean, I don't know if it's they necessarily want. I think the game innuendo is there not because like they want the game, but because it romanticizes or distances the actual violence of the thing going on. So I'm not sure if like a game would sway their perception of what they're doing in that way. Also, in all honesty, I am thinking of most games as very like conflict driven in ways where I'm like, I don't know if is gaming more a reflection of Western appetites than any meaningful mediator of changing that. I'm not gonna say no. I do think, you know, there is value in the arts, obviously. That's why I do this stream. Universal paper clips. It's that whole thing to me of like, you know, the same way like a fascist will watch Starship Troopers and be all like, no, yes, this is reaffirming my values. I think whatever you show them, it's going to post facts just get like written in as something else. Damn. No, I was about to say papers, please. I'm like, no, that's exactly the one. They'd be like, no, this is perfect, excellent. I want to do this. I don't see what the problem is. I, for some reason, digitally collect Disney Star Wars Back the Blue shit. Like, memes, like, people making stuff. Because I wholly see that aplenty. Like, the people empathizing with, like, thinking they're the stormtroopers. This is why I think the Venture Bros is so great, because it really understands the coworker vibes of, like, hinching. Oh, what's this room? I keep forgetting I can do that. And it's really cool that you can. I'm like, is there an interact button with any of these panels? I don't think so. But so like, I wonder if this map's useful for anything. Let's go back out. Ooh, can I punch this window? Oh, no. Yep, there we go. Damn it. I'm noticing those little tiles make noises too. Noted. I'm gonna punch you in the back of the head. Can I? Oh, okay. Interesting. Let's go up. See, in the whole like stormtrooper, like it's a living day in the life, it's that surrender of like lesser two evils, huh? This is something I find fascinating about Stephen King, who is very much a boomer liberal in his conception of ethics of the world. I think he thinks good is harder to do than it is, but he has some pretty spot-on prescriptions about evil, and I think one of them is this kind of thing you see throughout with like, if you're familiar with the Dark Tower universe or The Stand, the way people end up working for Randall Flagg or the Crimson King more out of, it's not that they're evil, it's that, you know, they're scared and tired and hungry. It's a living, that kind of a thing. The Dark Tower books in specific are a bit critical of people who like Star Wars too much. Damn, they know I'm down here, don't they? I'm glad I have this hidey hole, but oof. A Hello Kitty assault rifle? 'Cause damn. Okay, so it seems like there's a key card to my east. And then there's a ration in the northeast. Oh, that mother. Oh, it's all clanky. You don't see me. Okay, yeah, go away. It's nothing. Ah. Okay. This one's a bit meaner than Metal Gear 1, or I'm not playing as vigilant. Maybe the pistol's better as well, and I'm just not taking advantage of that. Whoa, okay, this is nice. Elevator battles. I remember Army of Two, but I never played it. Okay, so there's the doctor. How do I get there? I can't open those doors. I can't open that one. All right. Oh, can I crawl under these desks? I can. Awesome. Oh, I guess I picked something up? I didn't even see. Did I find some ammo? Okay, you have an O2 meter before you start losing life, eh? That's generous. Perhaps I should search for a gas mask. Okay, and you can climb through the desk. It's good to know. Shit, that just kills you, right? Yeah. I didn't even see the door at the bottom there. I should have. I should just start right there, right? Yeah. Interesting. It's the roller from the first game, but in a much more legible, meaningful way. Basement 2, okay. Can't open that up yet. All right, let's see if we can find the gas mask, gang. Was that last room just to teach you about gunfire detectors? I don't know. I was kind of suspecting it might be another thing where there's infrared beams that you can trip alarms on. Yeah, this soundtrack's got some mood to it. There were only like 3 songs in Metal Gear 1. Okay, B2 is the lowest of the low. Let's check out B1, and then I think we were on the 2nd floor when we exhausted our options and needed the gas masks. Damn, there's a lot of places you can go here. Yes, okay. Is that just dead ends up there, or is that a door? I can't tell. I'm gonna have to go punch the guy and see. Cool. All right, so that's basement 1. I can't card down there, but I got infrared goggles, so I should maybe go up to the 2nd floor again. Massive improvement on these elevators, by the way. Remember Metal Gear 1, gang, when it was like a 2D screen, I had to walk into the thing and then just hold up on? This has this nice animated graphic. It's a button you punch. It has a nice feel to it. Okay, I can't go anywhere but to. All right then, let's use those infrared goggles. If the keycards stack, I'm gonna be so happy. If I don't have to cycle cards, this game's going to be awesome. Is that it? Oh no, there's a 4. Before I go to the infrared room, let's see if the gas mask is up here. Oh, I might just not be able to card this door at all. Nope. All right then. Back to the 3rd floor. Yeah, because the 2nd floor was where I got card 1. 1st floor I came in on. We're gonna go beyond the infrared maze. And you know what, gang? We might throw on some background watching. There's a few YouTube videos I've been curious to watch, and I think some of them may be relevant to what we've been talking about here with all these military games. You know what? Do you think I can crawl under it? Nope. Dang, they have good sight. Maybe I try to brave the gas mask called in. Oh, I didn't have my card key on when I did that run. For all I know, those doors could have worked. I wonder if the infrared's just suspended while the alarm's going? Seems that way. Okay, bottom one's still unreachable, but this guy's legible. There's the gas mask. All right. Objectives are clear. There's a causal path to follow. This is good game design. That's me being foolish, but I'm gonna hide under this desk. It'll be fine. Why is there gas? Oh, the gas comes in because of the alarm. That's fucked up. Mask for Mask. Here's a military video game thought / nightmare. I hate the scouting of high school and college kids for scholarships for gaming. Has that happened yet? No. Will it? My tinfoil guess. I suspect in some sense it is. I remember in high school I took the ASVAB and there were recruiters on me because I guess I scored well. I mean, America's Army's been a thing for the longest time as well. Like, they're grooming our kids, folks. Yeah, because doesn't like the U.S. aren't there like esports teams in the U.S. military? Don't they have official esports like teams? Can't hold anymore. Okay. Yeah, and they stream on Twitch sometimes. It's cool that the gas mask also, like, you still have some O2 you have to consider. Is this the doctor? We made it. No. Am I gonna have to shoot this person? Black Ninja, a former member of NASA's Extraterrestrial Environment Special Forces Unit. Wait, you fought aliens? Chad, am I reading this right? He was part of NASA's Extraterrestrial Environment Special Forces. He was like NASA Special Forces? NASA has a CIA in the Metal Gear Solid universe, I guess? Whoa, what the fuck? Oh, this is cool. He has some character. Okay, I can shoot over this. Nice. Okay. Damn. I need to punch him. Where is it going to start me? Alright, I need to go up and retrieve the gas mask. Do you guys think I can farm rations off of the second floor? I'm going to try. Damn it, it's okay. Doom, doom. Damn. Actually, gang. I'm doing this for the reset. Strategic dumpster dive. I'm also curious if I come down here sometime if something good will be dropped down the chute. Like maybe I should run up and check the trash bag before it gets pushed in to see if there's like ammo or something in it. Alright, we're gonna see about potentially camping rations. Yeah, I already looked up around this area. This is where I found the infrared goggles. Work and lurk. Alright, if we go this way... Damn it, and then we go this way... Ooh, I didn't know I can go in here. The more you know, yeah, I took cover. If I go this way, yeah, alright. Can I go down to the first floor from here? I didn't really explore around the first floor, but I didn't have the card at the time. Is there a way to step down with ease? No. Okay. Let's try to grab one more ration, and then we'll go fight the ninja. The space ninja, very important. He's a space ninja. He's both Grey Fox and the Fury. Oh, okay. Choose the limit. Ooh, that is a nice, there's a nice tension to that weight there. I kind of want to go check out the west room. Ooh, this dude's about to walk in. Oh, so is this dude. Oh, so is that dude. Okay. Does the key open this? No. What's down this way? Ammo? That might be useful. Oh, there's a guy up there, eh? Oh no, not your attention span, howdy. Also, howdy. Thank you for joining us despite the attention woes. Is there anything under here? Nope. Alright, I should really just get back to the elevator. Buddy, I'm going to punch you. Oh, it's gonna happen again. Yep. Hide. Nope, no food hiding under the tables for me. All right then. Will you turn into food if I punch you? You won't? Okay. That's cool that there's little glove stations there. All right, this is what I got for this. Black Ninja. Dang, okay. We were just blasting at each other. No radio calls for, like, that room, but I've had a few codec combos. Alright, let's do that with less blast, less taking hits. Oh, damn, okay. Yeah, no radio calls concerning Black Ninja, yeah. I do wonder if I'm gonna get his tragic backstory once I kill him, or if that's still a ways off in the Kojima ticks. Kojima ticks. Is it a ration down there? Yeah, it is a ration. Okay. There we go, more health. I'm actually gonna wait for the camera to pass just because I wasn't liking that timing there. And we have the mask, we have enough O2. Yeah, I need to dance better around his star arcs and then just like sling 2 shots for him to walk into. Kind of the classic aim where he's going, not where he is thing. All right. If I can get him stuck inside the box too, that's very good. Like that. Yeah, this right here. Oops. Got him. Snake. Who are you? How do you know my name? Schneider. Kyle Schneider. What? You were in the resistance at Outer Heaven. Oh, is he one of the hostages I rescued? But I thought they killed you. You still got a lot to learn, Snake. I was almost killed, but not by them, by you and your country. Oh? They just glassed Outer Haven. Damn, this ties right into what 2 is going on about with the kids and all that. Holy shit, cool, 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 cool. They were a liability, and NATO didn't want to deal with them. No. Oh, this is just like Sniper Wolf. Like, he came and saved us from annihilation. He forgave us for what we'd done. He gave us a new land to call home, a new family. Who could he be talking about? Dude with a green beret on the first floor. Follow him around. Follow the man in the green beret. Cool. Clear direction. Health upgrade. Key card. Cool, cool, cool. Oh no, oh no, you can select different cards. I'm worried, gang. Oh no, it's not looking good, gang. It's looking like you have to cycle cards still. I wonder what programming or quirk of limitation is the reason for that. It seems like it'd be so much nicer just to make it all one card, you know? Are you card 2 though? No? Okay. Interesting. I want to check if that one room on the second floor is card 2 as well. The swiper shuffle is back. That's right, Alman. It does increase panic, true. It is awesome. Awesome, awesome. Looks like some kind of secret gun. Damn. Okay, I got, oh. That's even better. Okay, nice. Is this the one that takes me to the sewer? Yeah, okay. This is such a nicer gimmick than elevator that only goes up and elevator that only goes down on opposite sides of the facility. That was the most frustrating part of building 2, I believe. All right, we're back on the first floor. The man with the green beret. We gotta find the man with the green beret. How do I equip the suppressor? Or is it automatically on? I guess. Yep, it's on. Okay, I can just shoot dudes then. Nice. But don't shoot the green beret guy. I have to find the green beret guy. It's none of the dudes here. Ooh. Does this go anywhere? No, this is just a hiding spot. Okay. Good to know that's there, though. Cool. Cool, cool, cool. That looks like the Green Beret man. I do like that you can do those punch stuns. I wonder if that is anything meaningful. Nope. Guns in general are better this time around. This pistol's far more useful. Ooh. Ooh. Interesting. Okay. Let's get back to what's important. Following the man with the green beret. Oh, I can see on the other side of doors. That's nice. I bet Green Beret Man is going to go through... Oh? Oh! Okay. This is fun. Musical cues, that's well considered. Yeah, this soundtrack's a huge step up, and I was liking, as background music, what the first game was doing. It was serviceable for the mood. This is really adding texture. There's just a lot more character overall to this game. Damn. Truth be told, I was kind of curious to replay Metal Gear 1 and see if I can do it in like a 3-hour single session, just because now that I know all the gimmicks, I was like, that's actually not very long a game. I can see somebody getting really into it back in the day. Yeah, I make that sound when I check behind me all the time, L-man. This is very much like looking for Meryl in Solid. Hopefully, I can just, yeah. What? Oh, there's someone knocking on the wall over here. Interesting. Oh, I need to unequip the, Can I talk to him at all? Doesn't appear so. I'm gonna go outside and take that call. Maybe I blow it up or whatever. It's a tap code. They're used to communicate in North Vietnamese POW camps. Educational. In the software manual? Are you serious? You're supposed to like figure out this fucking Morse code codec frequency through the software manual? Like, I'm glad they did that. I'm glad I have the manual on hand. Although, chat, I'm playing the Metal Gear Solid HD collection for the PS3. The manual's for that. I think it explains Metal Gear Solid 3 subsistences controls, but I don't know if it says shit about Metal Gear 2. Holy crap, all right. Guess we're doing some read on stream, let's see. See, I do feel like if I knew Morse code, it wouldn't be too bad. Let's see if it's in the manual, I'm fine. Is it in the 3 manual? Let's see, Snake Eater. I'm just gonna honestly look up what the tap code is, because no, it does not appear to be in there. Actually, you know what? No, it's not like in there. Okay. Oh, look up. Thank you, Ja. Okay, but what is the actual code? Water 5211. Okay. All right, I'm being told it's 140.82. Let's see if that is true. There he is. No, I didn't figure out your code, dude. I'm sorry. It's been a while, eh, Solid Snake? Dr. Drago Petrovich Madnar, how did you? Marv and I knew each other from the Prague Academy. We didn't speak each other's language, but we were scientific comrades after a fashion. I was captured along with Marv while we were in America. Where's Dr. Marv? He was moved from here to the Tower Building a few days ago. It's a tall building a few kilometers north of here. Damn it, I'm late again, so Marv's in the Tower Building. Snake, can you guess why they've left me alive? They must need you for something, and that means, yes, Metal Gear, Snake. It is here, in Zanzibar land. This is something you do get to in Solid and in 3, where you get to the first scientist, he's like, no wait, you don't realize, Metal Gear is here. The DARPA chief tells you this in Solid. I forget the name of the dude in 3, but he's the dude who lost out to the to what the actual thing the Russians went with is. They've already completed a new Metal Gear. The one you destroyed 3 years ago was only a prototype. The new improved Metal Gear is many times more powerful. They've also working on a light version for mass production. Proliferation on the mind already. Then it was Metal Gear that attacked the nuke disposal sites. Precisely. Metal Gear is a nuclear-equipped walking tank. Its true power is unleashed only when it's armed with nuclear weapons. Zanzibar Land now has the only nukes in the world, and now they have their sights set on Oilix, a miracle energy source. Snake, now that you know all this, perhaps you can guess who is behind it? Big Boss? The very same. With Metal Gear and Oilix, he plots to rule the world. We cannot let his secret Oilix fall into his hands. Science is not meant to be used only for killing. Marv's will is strong, but his heart is weak. We must hurry. I don't know how long he can withstand their torture. If they use drugs on him, he won't last long. Marv and I were both carrying microtransmitters inside our bodies. They were given to us by a female agent from STB. You could get in touch with her if you knew her frequency. Madnar, what are you going to do? The wall separating us is made of chobam armor plate. You can't blast your way through it. Just leave me here and go rescue Marv, Snake. Alright, I'll come back for you later. Oh damn, I accidentally skipped a thing talking about his daughter Ellen. Dr. Johann Jacobson, who lives around here, you can reach him on frequency 140-140. 140-40. Anything you need to know about animals, eh? Don't worry, I'll make sure you get home in time for your daughter's wedding. Thank you, Snake. Oilix. Alright, let's call up 140-40 really quick. Just to get Johann on the line. I like the faces. Why does Foxhound use animals for code names anyway? Who came up with the idea that animals are so warlike? Damn, Jacobson, you're already endeared to my heart. Fuck. This is just like the scientist from On the Beach. People, that's who. I just don't get it. Over and out. Oh, he just did that, eh? Awesome. Amazing. This really is, in a lot of ways, I'm like, oh, this is Metal Gear Solid in 2D. Like, you know, Metal Gear Solid just successfully translated all this into cool, moody 3D environments with a kick-ass score. That being said, I'm gonna save, and I'm noticing the battery's going low. We have been at it for about an hour and a half, which is about the halfway point of the stream. Let's save, let's take a break, stand up, stretch, rehydrate, be nice to our bodies, and we'll be back in a few minutes. See you on a bit. Hello, welcome back to TECHNOPOVERTY. We're playing Metal Gear 2 while talking about Seth Harp's The Fort Bragg Cartel. I totally got impatient and we just interneted a Morse code puzzle because we weren't given... I'm gonna scan one more time if they gave us the tap code. Because the thing is, it's not like Meryl where they just give you the frequency on the back of the box. I remember them doing that on like the PlayStation 2 re-release and stuff where they made sure to include that screen cap. There's like a full-on like cipher for decoding the taps that I see in images on like the Metal Gear Solid wiki. I'm kind of just gonna flip through. But you know what? We're reading manuals, we're reading books, we're playing classic retro video games. That's kind of our thing here at TECHNOPOVERTY. Playing books as a means of reading games as a means of playing books. Chatting it up with y'all here in the chat. Of course, you can always check out our VODs on YouTube, but I do think a big benefit is what comes up in conversation. Chat, y'all are very smart, very handsome folks. Thank you for being part of this project. I'm not seeing that grid here. What I am seeing, though, is I pulled up this Mr. Beat video. Not Mr. Beast, Mr. Beat, the YouTube historian, the wonderful, wonderful creator. Love his shit. This one is called, if I recall correctly, it's every time the US has done an intervention. Every time the United States overthrew a foreign government. Oh yes, I was being much too sanitary with that title. I apologize, Mr. Beat. I wasn't trying to sharpen your bite. It is fierce, strong, and probably correct. I'm just gonna fire this up and then we're gonna continue punching dudes in Metal Gear 2.
Who's overthrowing governments? I'm not overthrowing governments. I'm Mr. Beat. Come on. Y'all know me. Still same old G. I ain't got time for that. But guess who has overthrown governments?
Completely harmless.
The United States government. Like, a lot.
Regime change.
It's called regime change.
Is it in America's best interest to have regime change in Iran?
And these wasteful regime change wars.
President Trump now appearing to entertain the idea of a regime change in Iran, with Trump posting online, if the current Iranian regime is unable to make Iran great again, why wouldn't there be a regime change?
Oh, regime change? The United States definitely knew her.
A coup, which is short for coup d'etat, is a sudden, forceful, and illegal overthrow of a government. In this video, let's look at every time the United States did a coup, or heavily influenced a coup.
How many times has the United States overthrown a foreign government?
Well, estimates range from 14 all the way up to more than 100. According to my own estimates, there have been 26. At least 26 worth mentioning.
We have a bit of breaking news that has just come in. Right now, the Iranian state media is telling the people of Iran that the Ayatollah has been killed.
Oh, okay. According to my own estimates, there have been 27? At least 27 worth mentioning.
Yeah, I know. That's a lot.
And these were the successful coups, not the ones that failed. Because there are so many, I'll keep it brief. For each one, we'll break it up into 3 periods. The Imperial Expansion Era, the Cold War Era, and the War on Terrorism Era.
Oh,
Gang, what was your
then.
favorite era
Here's every
of
time the United
coups?
States overthrew a foreign government. Oh, I should mention that we know of. Here's every time the United States overthrew a foreign government that we know of.
There, John. I'm still messing with the levels because I feel the same.
During
the Attitude Era of
Expansion Era,
imperialism.
the United States was a bit more brazen with their imperialism.
Is that a child?
They didn't try to hide it.
On January 17th, 1893, American and European businessmen, with aid from the United States military, overthrew Queen Liliuokalani because her Hawaii First policy basically threatened their profits. Now, many don't realize the United States didn't annex the islands until more than 5 years later. In the meantime, these business leaders just started their own government there. As you probably already know, Hawaii eventually became a state, but the overthrow of the Hawaiian Kingdom remains one of the most controversial land grabs in American history.
Over the next several decades, the United States went bananas with the Banana Wars, a series of American interventions in Central America and islands in the Caribbean Sea.
Yes, the Banana Wars are a real thing. There's a Woody Allen movie about it.
No. No.
The name Banana Wars was popularized by a historian named Lester Langley, who wrote multiple books on American intervention in Latin America, and he called them that since many of these interventions protected the United Fruit Company, which made a lot of money off of, you guessed it, bananas. In 1903, after Colombia wouldn't let the United States build a canal through this part of their territory, the United States government encouraged Panamanian rebels who lived in the area to declare independence. The American president at the time, Theodore Roosevelt, sent warships to block Colombian troops from stopping the revolt. And yep, after the Panamanians gained independence, the new country of Panama almost immediately signed a favorable canal treaty with the United States.
Wow.
Also in 1903,
the United States military supported a coup by Manuel Bonilla, who was more friendly to American business interests like the aforementioned United Fruit Company. Over the following years, the American military would repeatedly protect Bonilla from other attempted coups.
Ah yes, Honduras.
Cool, he came out of the
original
elevator. That's a
Banana
nice touch.
Republic.
Well, the United States originally acquired Cuba after defeating another imperial power, Spain, in the Spanish-American War. At first, the United States promised Cuba they'd have independence. But then, the Americans, just wouldn't go away. Congress passed the Platt Amendment, which said the United States could intervene anytime it wanted to against a government it did not approve of. And it did just that. The American military hung around Cuba until 1909. Hey, speaking of 1909, that year, the United States helped overthrow President Jose Santos Zelaya because he wanted to build a canal across the country that competed with the Panama Canal. And yeah, Zelaya threatened American business interests. American soldiers would support rebels and ended up occupying the country on and off for the next 2 decades. I hate to break it to you, but every time you go online, giant corporations are stealing your personal data. And then data brokers are turning around and selling your personal data to anyone. Stuff like your address, your phone number, even your political beliefs and income level. Jeez. I hate this crap. But you want to know one way I fight back? By using Delete Me. Delete Me proactively removes our home address, phone numbers, and family details from the internet. What I like about Delete Me is that it sends you these personalized privacy reports showing what they found, where they found it, and what they deleted. I've been using it for several years at this point, and it's done a really good job scrubbing my personal information from all kinds of messed up sites out there. Protect your personal information and your family's personal information by using Delete Me.
Yes, L-Man. The house gas method.
20% off
the terrible
consumer
house gas
plans
method.
when you go to joindeleteme.com/MrBeat and use promo code MrBeat at checkout.
What did that turn into? Shit.
There's the QR code. That's joindeleteme.com/MrBeat using code MrBeat.
Did I get rations out of that? Nice.
This video. In 1913, Henry Lane Wilson, the U.S. Senator Woodrow Wilson, was very involved helping overthrow the democratically elected president of Mexico, Francisco Madero, who threatened American oil interests. Well, Woodrow Wilson would end up firing Henry Lane Wilson, but he kept American forces there anyway after continued instability in the country over the next few years in what became known as the Mexican Revolution. In 1915, American troops straight up invaded and occupied Haiti after a mob killed the country's president, Vilbrin Sam. You see, American banks had lent a lot of money to Haiti, and they wanted the American military to get that money back. Hey, eyes down here, buddy. Why are you staring at my forehead anyway? Pervert. The Americans disbanded Haiti's army and controlled local politics in the country for years.
Shit. Okay, the floor tiles are nicer this time as far as the fallouts
go. On May 15th, 1916, American troops landed in Haiti's neighbor to the east, the Dominican Republic, to, quote, restore order, and then promptly ran the government. Well, the real reason why they were there was to protect an American-owned sugarcane plantation. They sidelined locally elected leaders and installed American-friendly military leaders in their place. The United States military would occupy the Dominican Republic until September 18th, 1924.
Hey Matt, Che Guerrero here, fellow content creator and Dominican who can speak a little more in depth about this topic if you don't mind.
Yes, cool.
Thanks. The American military had actually previously intervened in the Dominican Republic in 1903. Due to the multiple rebellions, the United States sent naval ships to protect American property and interest in the nation. They left shortly after, but returned several times, such as in 1914, when the Navy intervened to stop another rebellion and oversee the next elections. Fun fact, if you can call it that. During this era, FDR was a key architect of Wilson-era naval occupations in the Caribbean, setting up the Dominican Constabulary and the Hyena training schools that shaped the military career of DR's longest-serving dictator, Rafael Trujillo. I'll be back later, just like the US, because the US comes back after we stop Trujillo.
Thanks, Che. You can imagine this led to a lot of anti-American sentiment throughout Latin America.
Well, props to the American presidents Calvin Coolidge, Herbert Hoover, and Franklin Roosevelt, who mostly ended regime changes. Hoover and FDR, in particular, implemented what became known as the Good Neighbor policy, in which the United States pledged to respect the sovereignty of its neighbors and avoid direct military intervention in Latin America. No more military occupations.
But then World War II happened, and during the Cold War, the United States got more sneaky with the coups, and of course it was all aimed at stopping the spread of communism. Yeah, this is a little ripe. Yeah, this one's a bit more famous.
In 1953, after Iran's democratically elected Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh nationalized British-controlled oil, hurting American companies, the Central Intelligence Agency, or CIA, as well as the MI6, the British Secret Intelligence Service, paid mobs, bribed officials, and spread propaganda to cause chaos in the country. Eventually, they aided in a straight-up coup of Mossadegh, replacing him with Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, a king more friendly to American business interests. Pahlavi would rule with an iron fist, and the people of Iran would eventually revolt against him in what became known as the Iranian Revolution.
Which, yep, led to the Iranian hostage crisis. Oh, yeah. I have a video about that.
In 1954, Guatemala's president, Jacobo Arbenz, began to take unused property from the aforementioned United Fruit Company to give it to poor farmers. In response, the CIA aided rebels, ran radio psyops, and bombed targets to scare Arbenz into resigning.
This was actually the second time the United States tried to overthrow their government. The first time, 2 years prior, was unsuccessful.
A military dictatorship followed, sparking decades of civil war and mass killings. In 1960, after the Congo gained independence from Belgium, citizens there elected Patrice Lumumba as their prime minister. Well, the United States feared he was a bit too friendly with the Soviet Union. The CIA would help Belgium assassinate him, and eventually the dictator Mobutu Sese Seko took over and terrorized the country for more than 30 years. On May 30th, 1961, rebels ambushed and assassinated Rafael Trujillo, the dictator of the Dominican Republic. And guess who supplied weapons to the people who assassinated him? The CIA.
The CIA. Always playing both sides. Hi, Che again. Missed me? In 1963, the Dominican Republic held elections and Juan Bosch came into power as president of the Dominican Republic as part of the Dominican Revolutionary Party.
Cool.
This made the conservatives on the island very nervous. They saw Bosch taking land from the rich landowners, creating a more liberal and less secular constitution, and allowing the Communist Party to grow. Also, and most importantly, limiting the power of the military. That last one was the nail on the coffin for Bosch's presidency. This led to the far right of the Dominican Republic removing Bosch in what they called a bloodless coup, which replaced him with a military junta. This led to a civil war in April 1965. Side note, my grandmother was born in the Dominican Republic in 1933, 3 years into Trujillo's dictatorship. When the civil war broke out and it seemed like Bosch was going going to come back into power, she remembers having hope that her country can have a real people's revolution. However, my grandma's hopes, like millions of others, were dashed when the U.S. intervened in the Civil War and imposed a political transition that first led to a provisional president, Hector Garcia Godoy, and then to the election of Joaquin Balaguer, who was Trujillo's vice president. Balaguer was president of the Dominican Republic in 1988, when I was born in the Dominican Republic, and stopped being president in 1996. My first 8 years of life were under a dictator that the U.S. helped install, just like the one my grandmother lived under that the U.S. helped install. I am living proof that the damage that the U.S. has inflicted in Latin America is not such ancient history.
After Jose Maria Velasco
continuity,
Ibarra, the
as we've
president
been
of
talking
Ecuador,
about
got a little
with
too friendly
the
with
postmodern state of
Cuba,
schizophrenia
the
Fredric Jameson
used
describes.
propaganda,
Why would
forged
someone not
documents,
want
and
us to
straight
know
up
our
bribery
history?
to overthrow him on November 7th, 1961. 2 years later, anti-communist rebels within Ecuador overthrew the next president, Carlos Julio Arosemena Monroy, after he too was a bit too friendly
camp
with Cuba.
rations like you couldn't first, but fair.
There is growing evidence that the CIA also helped plan and carry out the overthrow of Abdul Karim Qasim, who was then executed by firing squad on February 9, 1963. Qasim had been open to closer ties to the Soviet Union and communism. After Brazil's president, João Goulart, pushed for land reform and more worker rights, this freaked out, you guessed it, American business interests. In early 1964, the United States provided logistics and military aid to help rebels overthrow Goulart and install a harsh military dictatorship which would rule for the next 21 years. The CIA helped Britain overthrow Chetty Jogan, the chief minister of what was British Guiana at the time. After Jogan got elected, he became a bit too cozy with Marxism and the Soviet Union. After Bolivia's president, Juan Jose Torres, became friendly with Cuba and nationalized the country's mines, the CIA gave intelligence and other aid to rebels. On August 21st, 1971, these rebels ultimately overthrew Torres and replaced him with Hugo Banzer, who, you guessed it also, would rule Bolivia as a brutal dictator for the next 7 years. Although strangely later in the 1990s, he'd returned to power after Bolivians elected him. Well, Chileans elected a socialist named Salvador Allende as their president after he nationalized the copper mines and threatened American business interests. The CIA caused chaos by disrupting the economy and giving millions of dollars to rebels for them to conduct military strikes. On September 11th, 1973, Chilean military rebels bombed the palace and killed Allende. Augusto Pinochet took over as a brutal dictator and would routinely torture and disappear citizens over the next 17 years. Yeah, I think these are starting to sound redundant. On October 25th, 1983, the United States military, along with a coalition of 6 different Caribbean countries, straight up invaded the country of Grenada to overthrow its Marxist government. Officially, President Ronald Reagan said the invasion was to protect American medical students, but we now know the main goal was actually to stop Soviet influence. The United States installed a more American-friendly government. Most of the world condemned the invasion of Grenada, but most Americans actually approved of it at the time. On December 20th, 1989, President George H.W. Bush sent thousands of American troops to overthrow and arrest Manuel Noriega, a former CIA asset turned drug-running dictator. Operation Just Cause. No, seriously, that's what the United States called it, Operation Just Cause. Noriega had become a bit too defiant and was threatening American interests near the Panama Canal. It was a quick, somewhat massive military operation that lasted less than 6 weeks and ended with Noriega in an American prison. But by then, the Cold War was winding down, bringing us to a new era. Operation Uphold Democracy. No, seriously, the United States called it Operation Uphold Democracy. So cringe, bruh. In 1994, President Bill Clinton sent 25,000 troops to, quote, convince Haitian military leaders under the command of Joseph Raul Cedras to step down without a fight. In his place returned Jean-Bertrand Aristide, who was overthrown 3 years prior, despite being democratically elected. It was a rare case of the United States intervening to restore a democracy it liked. What's also interesting about this coup was that there is some evidence that suggests the CIA may have helped Aristide be overthrown the first time. Oops. On February 29th, 2004, military rebels overthrew Aristide from power again, and he and others later accused the United States for playing a role in it.
But then 9/11 happened, and everything changed.
On September 11th, 2001, a group known as Al-Qaeda hijacked 4 airplanes to launch coordinated terrorist suicide attacks on American soil, known as the September 11th attacks, or simply 9/11, which I have a video about. Duh. In response to these horrific attacks, the United States invaded Afghanistan to topple the Taliban regime because they were harboring Al-Qaeda. The United States teamed up with the Northern Alliance, a group of Afghan rebels, to quickly take control of the country. This began the longest war in American history, the War in Afghanistan, which ended with the Taliban returning to power
Master Miller,
in 2021. On April 11th, 2002, rebels overthrew Venezuela's president, Hugo Chavez. There is some evidence that American diplomats helped organize it. However, the coup was short-lived. Like, really short-lived. Chavez was back in power within 48 hours. On March 20th, 2003, American troops led an invasion of Iraq to overthrow Saddam Hussein, the country's brutal dictator. How did the United States justify this invasion and overthrow? Well, President George W. Bush and his administration had claimed Saddam had weapons of mass destruction and ties to terrorists. No such weapons were ever found, but American soldiers did capture Saddam and eventually executed him. The invasion destabilized the entire region and led to a long, bloody insurgency. Oh, I also have a video about the Iraq War. In 2011, both American and NATO air power helped rebels overthrow the dictator Muammar Gaddafi. And boy, did those rebels, yeah, they took care of him. Sure, the mission was officially to, quote, protect civilians, but it just quickly turned into yet another regime change operation. Libya fragmented into rival governments and has basically been in constant chaos ever since. And here's some very recent history. On January 3rd, 2026, American forces carried out a military strike in Venezuela that resulted in the capture of Venezuela's president, Nicolas Maduro, and his wife, Celia Flores. President Donald Trump announced that the United States would oversee a new government and is currently holding Maduro and Flores in prison as they await trial for illegal drug-related charges. So that's it, I think.
Is there something I missed around here?
Oh crap, there's another one. Yep, literally as I was making this video, the United States and Israel launched strikes on Iran that killed Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei and around 40 senior members of the country's regime. Why? Well, I don't know if we have a good grasp as to why yet, but that's it. That's every time the United States overthrew a foreign government. Yeah, I hope that's every time the United States has overthrown a foreign government. This banana isn't that good.
Thanks, Matt, for letting me share a bit of what I know with your audience. And please follow me on TikTok, Instagram, Substack, and YouTube at Che Guerrero ENG if you want to see a mixture of comedy and news. Thanks. Till next time.
Thanks for hopping in, Che, for this video for the Dominican Republic and stuff. I highly recommend you check out all his channels. And a big inspiration for this video was a book that I read about 20 years ago now. I can't believe it's been that long. Overthrow by Stephen Kinzer. It's a great book. I highly recommend it. And look, I know that wasn't all of them. There are more times the United States probably was involved with overthrowing a foreign government. I got tired, okay? If you can think of any more, please let us know in the comments. Oh, and if you work for the CIA, please let us know of any secret ones that you were involved with in the comments as well. Thanks for staying curious.
At this point, possibly ever, it's clear something's got to give.
This is a Lily Alexander essay.
Back in November, the New York Times published an opinion piece titled, "Did Women Ruin the Workplace?" The piece is a debate moderated by columnist Ross Douthat between two conservative women writers, Helen Andrews, who argues that women's entry into the workplace has been bad for society, and Leah Libresco-Sargent, who counters that workplaces should actually do more to accommodate women, ... so we can stop getting abortions and start popping out babies. The backlash to this conversation was swift and enormous, leading the paper to quickly change the piece's title to "Did Liberal Feminism Ruin the Workplace?" A question that's not really raised at any point in the conversation. This didn't do much to slow things down. I mean, even setting aside the title, the contents are so inflammatory and so indisputably sexist. Many readers who trust the New York Times for balanced, sensible takes were shocked the institution would ask a question so beyond the pale, so obviously offensive. Some of us, however, were not as shocked. The truth is that the New York Times has been drifting rightward for years, often through a framing like this, asking bold questions, starting tricky conversations. Its coverage of Gaza has been shameful. Its trans coverage has been used to pass anti-trans laws. And one of the paper's columnists, actually this one, Ross Douthat, recently began pondering the issue of anti-white discrimination. The Times isn't the only big outlet moving in this direction. Most famously, CBS and the Washington Post have both really gone off the deep end lately. But that's happened for pretty straightforward reasons. Both outlets were acquired by right-wing billionaires. The New York Times hasn't been. Their leadership is intact. And the founding principles that led them to 135 Pulitzer Prizes are the same principles that led them to ask this deeply stupid question. It's weird. Looking into why this piece got published, why pieces like this are being published with increasing regularity, I expected to find a story of takeover or radicalization, and that's just not what I found. The truth is, the New York Times hasn't changed, but the world around it has.
No?
The first thing to know is that the New York Times has been run by the same family since 1896. 1896, when a man named Adolph Oakes bought the paper and turned it from a conservative outlet into a liberal one. He vowed that the Times would be fiercely independent, dedicated to journalism with the highest integrity, and devoted to the public welfare. He vowed it would give the news impartially, without fear or favor, regardless of party, sect, or interests involved, and that the opinion section, which we'll be focusing on today, would invite intelligent discussion from all shades of opinion. I know he said all this because his words were echoed by the current publisher, Arthur Gregg Sulzberger, upon taking the paper over from his father, Arthur Oakes Sulzberger Jr., who took it over from his father, Arthur Oakes Sulzberger, who took it over from a guy named Orville Dreyfus? Is that a name? He took it over from his father-in-law, Arthur Hayes Sulzberger, who took it over from his father-in-law, Adolph Oakes. Hey guys, no reason. We're just a little worried about DEI. This one old money family basically sets the paper's agenda. They're not the only factor, but they do have the final say, and the current rating Sulzberger's choices, as an individual, will be a big part of the story. So in the opinion section, where do these stated values lead? Well, sometimes they produce kind of insane headlines, but most of their coverage is nowhere near this provocative. I read the section on January 13th, and looking at the day's opinion page, here's what I saw. Critique of AI, pro-Democrat, anti-Trump. I'm gonna stop trying to gesticulate with these, it's stupid. Critique of AI, pro-regime change but anti-Trump, anti-ICE, neutral analysis of Trump, anti-ICE, pro-regime change, pro-Christian but anti-Trump, pro-Christian but anti-Vance. All of these stances are mainstream and palatable to the US political center. The offensive opinion pieces travel further, but if you look at their output by volume, it's clear that the New York Times isn't biased toward the far right. It just wants to hear them out.
You can dislike much of what Kirk believed, and the following statement is still true. Kirk was practicing politics in exactly the right way. He was showing up to campuses and talking with anyone who would talk to him. He was one of the era's most effective practitioners of persuasion. I did not know Kirk, and I am not the right person to eulogize him. But I envied what he built. A taste for disagreement is a virtue in a democracy.
The thing about the New York Times is, before any party affiliation, their loyalty is to the health of the great American Republic. They are liberals, but less in the progressive sense of the word and more in the philosophical sense. They believe in pluralism, free speech, and a strong private sector. Crucial to that vision of society is a political landscape with a healthy right wing and a healthy center, both of which respect each other and want each other to keep existing. By the way, I'm going to say liberal a lot in this essay, and that definition is what I always mean. The paper came to prominence in this kind of society, and their main goal, I think, is to preserve it. Most American newspapers take for granted that the current system should be maintained if adjusted slightly. Even if you're a true American patriot like me, I swear, it's important to recognize that this is a bias. When Trump rolled onto the scene, he presented the biggest threat to the liberal state in decades, maybe longer. A politician who doesn't value the health of the republic, who doesn't work through legitimate channels. Instead, he gives critics the finger, does the things he wants to, and makes the whole liberal order seem flimsy in the process. When Trump won the 2016 election, the Times leadership was blindsided and kind of embarrassed. They realized that many voters shared Trump's deep cynicism about liberal democracy and saw a responsibility to restore faith in the system, to heal a country fracturing itself down party lines. Essential to this healing, they figured, was not being too mean to the right, giving them credit where credit's due, both to restore the right's trust in fact-based journalism and to help progressive readers empathize with the other side. The day the election is called, the opinion desk heaps praise on the statesmanship and political moderation of Ronald fucking Reagan. And then a few months later, they make their biggest move in this direction when they hire 2 new opinion columnists, Brett
Different types
Stevens
of rations,
Barry...
That's nice.
Oh, Jesus Christ, really? They hired Barry Weiss?
Yep.
Weiss. At the time, both columnists branded themselves as anti-Trump conservatives. Their politics were
not in the
different
fun
from most
anarchy
people at the
way.
Times, but they did not seek to destroy the possibility of the New York Times existing, and for management, that was good enough. Brett Stevens is a neoconservative whose first 3 contributions are well-researched, smartly written critiques of climate activism. Nowadays, he spends most of his time peddling Islamophobia and war crimes, but, you know, civilly, so it's okay. Barry Weiss's column was more moderate, but nonetheless made room for anti-Me Too pieces, and the authors professed, and this is a quote, unhinged Zionism. Over in the newsroom, the same ethos, listening to, empathizing with the ascendant right, is leading editors to commission pieces like this one, A Voice of Hate in America's Heartland, a profile of an openly neo-Nazi couple in Ohio. Now, the article doesn't like that they're Nazis, but it spends more time talking about the couple's normal vibes, wow, they go to the grocery store, than it does challenging their Nazism. Reception to this turn is mixed. A lot of readers are irritated that the Times is giving more consideration to the side that even the paper's management agrees is the problem. Many feel that this was not the paper they signed up to read. They actually don't want to see things from all sides. They want journalism that expressly works against the fascist creep. And the fascist creep. A lot of times reporters feel the same and criticize the paper for coverage they perceive as useful to the right or far right. The staff begins organizing around this. They call out the coverage on social media, they file complaints through their union, and they start conversations about it inside the paper. This strategy of applying pressure from multiple angles is effective, thanks in part to a policy introduced by the incoming publisher, who I should mention prefers his initials spelled without the periods. He actually hired a consultant to try and get it changed on his Wikipedia. So Ag Salzberger says journalists should be more responsive to social media and think of their job not just as reporting, but also attracting new readers. The clear unpopularity of platforming Nazis meant that a new idea, not platforming Nazis, held some sway for a while. However, other staff at the Times, including several higher up, were not on board with this approach. They thought the best way to defend democracy was to keep doing what the Times had always done. The fearless exchange of information and ideas, giving their readers access to a wide variety of positions, all treated more or less equally. Before long, staff at the Times sort themselves into one of two camps. Nowadays, you'll see it cast as the liberal journalists who support free speech versus the illiberal journalists who want to censor anyone they disagree with. I think it's more useful to understand this as a struggle between journalists who thought the New York Times should follow the same principles as usual versus those who thought the paper needed to adapt to the realities of a fascist president. A core disagreement here, I think, is about trust. Sure, in theory, everyone should be free to express their ideas and let the public choose which ones they agree with, but should you grant that platform to a fascist? Do the benefits of doing so outweigh the risk of normalizing their ideas? Can a fascist be trusted to tell the truth about the world they want to build or the human costs of building it? In June of 2020, this internal conflict comes to a head. After George Floyd is murdered by police officer Derek Chauvin, the United States sees the largest wave of protests in its history, with over 15 million people taking to the streets and solidarity protests erupting in 50 countries. This has been the target of heavy revisionism the last few years, but just so we all remember, the public was pretty down with all this. Sentiment tipped heavily against the police for Black lives, and the Times opinion coverage actually reflects this. There's a bit of the usual hand-wringing about property damage or whatever, but most of their coverage is shockingly sympathetic. The editorial board, sort of the voice of the opinion section, explicitly sides with the protesters, and before the month is out, the paper commissions Mariam Kaba herself to make a case for police abolition. It is a real credit to the work done over years by Black journalists at the paper.
The only new variable really is this one. So this is kind of like where I have to go, right?
What about the case for? On June 1st, Republican Senator Tom Cotton condemns the Black Lives Matter protests in a tweet that reads,
"We should have zero tolerance for anarchy and rioting and looting. And if necessary, the president should use the Insurrection Act to deploy active duty military forces to these cities to support our local law enforcement and ensure that this violence ends tonight, not one more night."
Jim Dow, who edits the paper's op-eds, sees this and asks Cotton to write an article arguing his position. And only 2 days later, before most of the good coverage makes it to print, his article is released. "Send in the troops." Maybe you remember this. It reads like something that started as a fascist Twitter screed and then was toned down maybe 20% to fit inside a newspaper. Cotton opens by painting a portrait of American cities as anarchistic battlegrounds, bands of looters, carnivals for the thrill-seeking rich, an orgy of violence. He makes the same basic point as in his tweet, but with some passing appeals to liberalism. He dedicates a single word to George Floyd's murder, wrongful, and briefly mentions that most BLM protests are peaceful before going on unfettered by that reality. In a truly baffling choice, Cotton says it's reasonable to send troops into American cities because it had previously been done to enforce desegregation.
What?
We've talked about a couple backlashes so far, but this one is on a whole other level. For one, it's more organized. Times employees get to talking in the company Slack and quickly mount a public response. Editor Jasmine Hughes puts it most plainly.
Running this put Black New York Times staffers in danger. This is a labor issue. This is our livelihood.
A lot of Times staffers tweet out some version of this statement. I'm not sure who was first because most have since been deleted. Anyway, the message is clear. Send in the troops should not have been published, not because Tom Cotton is wrong, but because the piece is a threat to the people who make the New York Times. A military presence at these protests would probably fail to distinguish between reporters, protesters, and rioters, not least because hundreds of cities had imposed curfews that made even peaceful protests illegal. The ensuing chaos would place everyone present directly in the line of fire, especially Black people, including those who work at the Times. Cool founding principles. Have you considered that they might get us killed? Most damningly, to anyone who's done even cursory research on Tom Cotton, it's clear that this endangerment is what he wanted. Conspicuously left out of his op-ed is another piece of his argument. No quarter for insurrectionists, anarchists, rioters, and looters. A conservative Times columnist, David French, points out that no quarter means refusing to accept the enemy's surrender, which is a war crime. He points out that Cotton, as a lawyer and veteran, surely knows this, and that what he is actually advocating for, in his own words, is mass murder. What the Times did during the editing process was take his point and try to rehabilitate it. They allowed Tom Cotton to advocate this fascist, racist goal, so long as he did not mention his fascist, racist motive. And thank God it did not work. Times readers see right through it and are horrified. The paper's news sources start reaching out to reporters and letting them know they're done supplying them with any information. At the peak of the fallout, hundreds of people are canceling their subscriptions every hour. New York Times staff, with the backing of their union, start meeting with management to talk about how the article was handled. On top of that, many of them start writing articles of their own about the whole fiasco, several of which end up published in the paper. With the pressure on the Times at its highest point, possibly ever, it's clear something's gotta give. The publisher, A.G. Sulzberger, who had initially supported the article, asks the top editor in the opinion department, James Bennett, to resign. He does, and everything gets worse. I doubt anyone would have guessed this at the time, but in retrospect, Bennett's resignation was a moment of genesis for the stupid world we live in today. In articles from the first couple weeks after he left the paper, you can see conservative writers straining to find the right words for what had happened. Ross Douthat, the opinion columnist who will go on to moderate Did Women Ruin the Workplace?, blames this moment on an unnamed, vaguely defined successor ideology that wants to replace liberalism. Over the following weeks, you can see the critics solidify their claim. Over the past several years, under pressure from left-wing employees, the New York Times has grown illiberal. It's lost all respect for the principles of free speech and open debate the paper was founded on, and views the paper only as a way to advance its own agenda. If you think about it, censoring the fascists is just as bad as being a fascist. Oh, did I say just as bad? I mean worse. Here's Bret Stephens' column in July.
For once, the main problem isn't Donald Trump. The president may be an instinctual fascist, a wannabe autocrat, but after nearly 4 years in power, he's been unmasked as an incompetent one. The more serious problem today comes from the left, from liberal elites who, when tested, lack the courage of their liberal convictions, from so-called progressives whose core convictions were never liberal to begin with, from administrative types at nonprofits and corporations who, with only vague convictions of their own, don't want to be on the wrong side of a PR headache.
Reminder, we're talking about war crimes. A few days later, on July 7th, Harper's Magazine publishes an open letter that makes a similar argument. Written mostly by journalists who've contributed to the Times and signed by over 150 prominent figures, A letter on justice and open debate closes by saying,
"The way to defeat bad ideas is by exposure, argument, and persuasion, not by trying to silence or wish them away. As writers, we need a culture that leaves room for experimentation, risk-taking, and even mistakes. We need to preserve the possibility of good faith disagreement without dire professional consequences."
One of the signatories is the
4
Times'
floors,
own
2
conservative columnist,
basements, and
Mary
it
Weiss,
connects all
who
the way over
resigns
to
from her
that other
post a week
building.
later. In her resignation letter, addressed to publisher A.G. Salzberger, who's not actually her boss, it's kind of like if
No
like
quarter,
Leach
super
by
duper
emailing
serious.
the CEO of Google. Anyway, she says the paper has made it impossible for opinion writers to follow the paper's founding principles.
My own forays into wrongthink have made me the subject of constant bullying by colleagues who disagree with my views. They have called me a Nazi and a racist. I can no longer do the work that you brought me here to do, the work that Adolph Oakes described in that famous 1896 statement, to make of the columns of the New York Times a forum for the consideration of all questions of public importance, and to that end, to invite intelligent discussion from all shades of opinion.
This backlash continues through 2021, and that vague successor ideology is eventually named wokeness. James Bennett's resignation is a big moment in the genesis of anti-wokeness. Even now, when you listen to the right describing the woke left, you get a sense this might be what they're picturing. War crimes. They tried to stop us from normalizing war crimes. Over the next couple of years, this anti-woke wave gains more ground than it loses. And by early 2023, James Bennett feels ready to talk about all this publicly. He pens a long article for The Economist going over his 4 years in charge of the opinion desk, where he blames his departure on the paper's new illiberalism, and the paper's new illiberalism on his underlings at the Times, the writers and editors mostly beneath him. He spends a good chunk of the article trashing their reporting skills and describing their response to "send in the troops" as vindictive.
As the conflict over Cotton's op-ed unfolded within the Times, I acted as though it was on the level, as though the staff of the Times would have a good faith debate about Cotton's piece and the decision to publish it. Instead, people wanted to vent and achieve what they considered to be justice, whether through Twitter, Slack, the union, or the news pages themselves. Engaging with them at all was a mistake.
This piece characterizes Bennett's critics not as people who disagree with him and think journalism needs to evolve, but as bullies, wielding the union as a weapon against their colleagues and management. He theorizes that pressure from the union is likely what made the publisher ask him to resign. Even years after all this went down, there's a palpable feeling of hurt and betrayal in the article. But for all of Bennett's criticisms, he also expresses a hope that the paper has already started turning itself around, reviving the liberal spirit that made the Times what it was. What gives him this hope? Why, the paper's excellent, balanced, unbiased coverage of trans people. I hate it here. Looking at the New York Times' coverage of social issues since this anti-woke backlash, it's clear they basically took the note. Since then, they've been working hard to shed their reputation as an outlet by and for the left. Their main move in this direction has been simply publishing more opinions against progressive causes. This is done under the guise of liberalism, even when the positions themselves are pretty
Just the
far
limits
right.
of the Protestant imaginary. Like, there's no constructive mode. It's all punishment and making sure
It seems they want to
stasis
come
is
back in alignment
achieved.
with their founding principles, which
Maintained.
hold that even dangerous ideas should be treated neutrally, so the public can reject them on their own merits. But because all this is about rehabilitating the paper's image, there's an amount of this that is just posturing. Sometime around 2022, the paper decided they don't like trans people after all and started pursuing anti-trans coverage, or I guess what you could charitably call trans-skeptical coverage, systemically across hundreds of articles. Nothing actually changed to warrant that shift. None of the moral panic stuff has actually materialized. Trans healthcare is still considered safe. There's been no enormous wave of young detransitioners, no actual crisis in women's sports.
Yeah, the whole
It was a
underage
PR move.
surgery
Billie Jean
stuff,
Sweeney,
complete
who was an editor
myth.
at the Times until 2024 and is herself a trans woman, says this shift was ordered from the highest levels of the paper.
Thank you, Holly.
Publisher
Thank you
A.G.
for informing me
Salzberger
about
and
the
a
sound.
couple of his new hires. Sweeney theorizes that they moved the paper to the right on trans issues because it's a culture war issue that a lot of people care about, but that the paper considers fairly low stakes.
I think he saw this as a political project that he could take a stance that the hard right would like, that the Trump campaign might like. And he pursued that because he thought it was a position. Spreading anti-trans discrimination, spreading anti-trans disinformation was
so where
he
do
could
I get
push.
the stinger
And
to
most
take
readers
out
would
this
say,
helicopter?
well,
Because
I
Holly
don't know
was
much
telling me about
He
Stinger
thought it was something
ammo.
there'd be no cost
Maybe I need
for.
to activate this
In 2023, over 1,000 Times contributors
But it might be
signed
across
on
the
to a
swamp
letter
if I
criticizing
recall
the
correctly.
paper
We'll
for
see.
shift, saying the new coverage is unbalanced, that it presents highly disputed claims as if they're facts, and pointing out that the Times' coverage has repeatedly been cited in far-right bills and lawsuits. Pretty major stuff. If there's anything we know, it's that the New York Times takes open letters seriously, and this one has almost 8 times more signatories than the first one. So how do they respond? Within 24 hours, high-ranking editors send out a memo to staff saying that the letter was against the rules.
We do not welcome and will not tolerate participation by Times journalists in protests organized by advocacy groups or attacks on colleagues on social media and other public forums.
Leadership tells the signatories they'll face serious consequences if they pull a stunt like this again. And to top it all off, Opinion publishes an article titled, "In Defense of J.K. Rowling. Free speech for me, zealous activism for thee." If it even needs saying, the letter was not sent by an advocacy group, and the kind of punishment they threatened is, from what I can tell, illegal. The paper's rightward lurch has only been possible because of the other way management has adapted to the post-woke era. They've seriously disempowered their workers. After all, the 2020 struggle played out as a labor struggle. Rank-and-file workers and their union exerting pressure on management. Management wants to make sure this can never happen again. So, among other things, they've shut down the paper's employee resource groups, the internal channels that staff use to raise concerns with management. They've also started enforcing existing rules more heavily, like the one banning the staff from criticizing the paper publicly.
The New York Times Magazine's award-winning writer Jasmine Hughes was recently forced to resign after signing an open letter condemning Israel's siege on Gaza. In an email to the staff, the magazine editor, Jake Silverstein, wrote, "While I respect that she has strong convictions, this was a clear violation of the Times policy on public protest."
Now that management isn't as afraid of their staff, they don't have to be as responsive to backlash. In fact, instead of fearing it, they can feed on it. Nowadays, they actively seek it out for all the attention it brings. How Women Destroyed the West, published a week before the piece that brought us here. No, Israel is not committing genocide in Gaza, published in, and I cannot stress this enough, July 2025. This new approach to opinion pieces is theater, both of debate and of cruelty. To the right, it says, we're not ideological, we'll ask any question. And to the left, it says, fuck you, what are you gonna do about it? First, they act provocative, and then when people get provoked, they use it as evidence of their own superior rationality, their opponent's weak constitution. It is, and I don't say this to be snarky, the Charlie Kirk model of having conversations. That's where I landed on all this a couple weeks ago. The New York Times asks stupid questions because that's what they've always wanted to do, and now there's no one in a position to stop them. But everyone has limits, right? The people who run the paper don't actually believe in platforming all shades of opinion. If they did, they'd be publishing pieces in favor of deporting 11 million people, annexing Greenland, or like shitting your pants in the middle of a press conference.
Chemists are coming up with new opioids faster than the government has been able to keep up. We're going.
They are centrists. There are observably lines they won't advance, questions they will not ask. And this really seems like it would be one of them, doesn't it? I mean, did women ruin the workplace is not a moderately conservative question. Unlike Tom Cotton in 2020, it makes no effort to launder its extremism. It is pretty transparently in favor of forcing women out of the public sphere, a goal so illiberal, so incompatible with democracy itself, that it seems to go against everything the New York Times is trying to defend. Would they really
This is like getting to the inventor's place in Death Stranding 2.
Feeling adrift, I decided to watch Helen Andrews and Leila Bresco-Sargent's conversation one last time. And this time, with the benefit of my research, I realized something that should have been obvious from the start. This video is not about women. It's about workers. First, some context. The reason this piece exists is that Helen Andrews delivered a speech at the 2025 National Conservatism Conference,
abbreviated as NatCon, like many other conventions.
This got a lot of attention, and she wound up adapting it into an article for Compact magazine. Presumably, Ross Douthat saw this article and asked her to come on his podcast, Interesting Times. There are 3 people at this table, but Andrews is the obvious main character. She's the one arguing that women ruin the workplace, and the bulk of the conversation is spent examining her ideas and not Douthat's or Labresco-Sargent's. So what is her idea? If women did ruin the workplace, how? Well, she thinks men and women, in aggregate, have certain essential personality traits. We picked them up in ancient times. Yes, it's evolutionary psychology, the worst field of science. Men were warriors, so they had to learn to take risks, exist peacefully in a hierarchy, and be open both to conflict and conflict resolution. Women were, as Andrews puts it, warriors.
I just want to essentialize things to where I don't ever have to take choices into my own hands.
I don't know, basically that's all. So we're emotional and catty and unforgiving. Make no mistake, Andrew's argument is misogynistic, obviously, and in so many ways. I've unfortunately got to hand it to Leila Labresco-Sargent for calling this out.
I never got a sense of whether there were female virtues at all from your piece. Genuinely, and that's why I'm asking. I got a sense of balance for the men, but not for the women.
I saw that you made that criticism elsewhere.
It's a question. It's only a criticism depending on your answer.
If you want to know what I like about women,
no, that's not my question.
You can ask me. In fact, I invite you to commission from me an entire essay on the subject, what I like about women. I feel the traits are very reasonable.
What do you like about women, Helen?
A question which Andrews then fails to answer. Yes, it is misogyny, but it's misogyny in service of a specific goal. Andrews' grievance with women at work is not that we're worse at doing the tasks that make money. She doesn't say we're too slow or weak or whatever. Instead, her position is that most businesses are essentially masculine places, and that there are clear hierarchies with most people near the bottom, that this is a good thing, and that the entry of women brings with it feminine values, questioning hierarchies, valuing their comfort over the pursuit of truth. What women bring, in a word, is wokeness. While men keep their heads down, women try to change how things are done. We start whisper networks, we unionize. Women put pressure on our employers who, fearing union grievances or lawsuits, respond by silencing themselves and stripping away the masculine qualities that make their businesses succeed. Here's the most concrete example Andrews offers. Let's say a manager sits down with a female employee and tells her that her career path isn't compatible with having children, so maybe she should reconsider. And let's say the manager doesn't have these conversations with men. Now, because women are biologically woke and unable to think rationally, that employee might get the crazy idea she's being discriminated against. She might even try to sue her workplace, even though all they did was account for the real differences between men and women. Men are naturally more ambitious, and women aren't brave enough to have that conversation. The goal of Helen Andrews' whole argument, and she really does try to make this clear, is to roll back labor protections, especially gender discrimination protections. She wants it to be harder for people to exert power over the places they work, because she thinks worker power makes everything worse.
I am advocating for fewer lawsuits, not more. I think probably the best equilibrium is, not every workplace is going to be a good fit for everybody.
Now imagine you're a conservative who works high up at the New York Times, and you're looking for fresh new voices to platform. When you come across Helen Andrews making this point, your eyes must get a little misty, no? Finally, someone who gets it. It's so messed up when our woke employees try to stop us from having conversations about doing war crimes. Ugh, I can't stand their quiet scheming, their union grievances. I hate it when they tell us we're putting people in danger. Like, that's even for them to decide. Maybe the sexism isn't your favorite, but conveniently, the whole part about blaming women can be excised from the argument, and all the other points remain intact. It's basically what Ross Douthat does. He rolls with all of Andrews' assertions about the harms of wokeness, except that feminization is the root of it.
Academia failing to solve serious problems, journalists failing to report the whole truth about the world, right? Like, this is your critique of feminization. I think it is a reasonable critique of things that wokeness did.
A bit later, he strips the underlying idea down even further to its absolute
They're force femming us.
In a passing comment that really gives it all away.
I think there's a lot of zones in American life, you know, from the tool factory and the car dealership.
The tool factory? Like, what is this dude's actual conception
right?
of what American, like, working class
kind
life is?
Ruthless competitiveness that is important to the truth-seeking that is the work of capitalism, right?
Truth-seeking is capitalism. Truth cannot come from below. It is dictated to the public by private enterprise.
Yeah, what the fuck,
Anyone
man?
who challenges leadership's authority is an affront to truth itself. Affront? Whatever. The New York Times may publish a wide variety of opinions, but their loyalty to this particular one is absolute. It's why they'll condemn student activists for Palestine, but never offer them a platform. It's why they'll publish an article like, "Send in the troops," but never, to this day, a single article calling to abolish ICE. The masses cannot decide for themselves. Forget what they've said about reporting without fear or favor. If you really want to understand where they're coming from,
Truth-seeking on the
feel the
factory
beating heart of the New
line.
York Times, you find it here exposed. One time, workers dared to take power, and we will never forgive them for it.
Where'd he go?
If there's any comfort to be found here, it's in knowing that the New York Times' response to fascism has been debunked once and for all. The people who dismissed the Times as a left-wing rag in 2016 continue to do so. After the Salzburgers reshaped their paper to serve these people, I found no evidence that conservatives trust the Times more now than they did a decade ago.
There's no, like, business reason to capitulate.
And now, her new outlet is calling the paper biased in favor of Hamas. On the 2024 campaign trail, A.G. Salzberger urged his staff to hear Trump out and treat him like any other candidate, and the administration rewarded his balance with a big, fat lawsuit for the crime of endorsing his opponent. You can't compromise with these people. They're not looking to compromise. They're looking to win. For all the Times has propped up non-Trumpian conservatisms, these ideologies remain as fringe now as they were a decade ago, if not more so. The only place conservatism against Trump has any real power is inside the New York Times. Their generosity to the right has, however, been useful to the ascendant, mask-off fascist movement. The paper's sympathetic review of J.D. Vance's memoir helped spread a narrative that eventually got him named vice president. Bari Weiss rode the anti-woke wave into the top seat at CBS News, where she now spends her days holding back stories about the president's concentration camps. And this winter, in Minneapolis, Tom Cotton celebrated as protesters were shot dead in the street.
The videos make clear the ICE officer was justified and Democratic politicians lied about what happened. Proud to stand with our brave ICE officers against the left-wing mob.
What followed in the city's anti-ICE uprising is exactly what New York Times workers said would follow. Black journalists were targeted by federal agents. They were arrested for trying to do their job. By publishing Send in the Troops back in 2020, the New York Times gave Tom Cotton a chance to edge those actions into the Overton window. Sure, they didn't let him explicitly call for killings or arrests of journalists, but Cotton absolutely knew this was the world he was working toward. The Times management might not have known, but it was kind of obvious, at least to anyone not deliberately blinding themselves. Believe me, it brings me no satisfaction to say, "I told you so," but so many of us did. Many of whom really liked the New York Times for all its flaws. I mean, a lot of them worked there, and they saw all of this coming.
Ain't nobody coming to rescue you,
unlike
dude.
the man
Sorry.
who runs their company, they are not the fourth-generation heir of a media empire. Politics to them is not a set of abstract principles. It is the thing that may one day kill them in the street. Workers recognize the unique danger of fascism and
Watch me injection mold 100% all-American insight.
Management mulled it over for a while and ultimately refused the call. They have failed, and we're all worse off for it.
Ooh, the Running Man.
The comfort I find here is that this way of doing journalism, invented and emblemized by the New York Times,
I am the running man, the world's fastest mercenary.
I know that might sound
no
crazy.
man can keep
the New
up
York
with
Times
me.
does have like 13 million subscribers and growing. But do you know why that is?
All right, we're going to give the running man center stage for a moment here. This video, by the way, just to remind people what it is Lily Alexander's Why the New York Times Loves Stupid Questions. I think after beating the running man here, I may find a stopping point shortly. I don't think we're going to get through the complete video. Let me go ahead and just share this link here in the chat with you. But yeah, we're going to switch the scene over and give this guy the full attention. Yeah. All right, running man. Okay, I just can't control things yet. I thought my controller died. Okay, cool. When can I start moving? There we go. So he'll run. Get him to run. Get him to run. Get him to run. Hopefully did that get him? I don't know. We'll set you right here. Get him to run. Get him to run. Okay, cool, 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 cool. Set these here. I may be wasting ammo, wasting time. Let's see. Oh no, that got him pretty good. Okay. Maybe I'll try just with one here. Let's see. Boom. There we go. I see I'm running out of life. I will take a ration in a moment. Let's get him to run. I'm now out of ammo. I don't think I can just catch up and blast him, so Snake's going to die, but I'm going to re-enter this fight prepared. I like this. These bosses have much more interesting gimmicks than the first games. Danger Duck had a cool hostage situation thing going on, but the other bosses were just kind of flat. Especially those two Arnolds. That was awful with that rocket launcher hint. Oh, are you kidding me? I have to work all the way through. Okay, maybe we will finish the Lily Alexander then, because I have to suss back through the swamp here.
It's because of Wordle. More than a third of Time subscribers don't even get the news. They only pay for recipes or sports coverage or games, even though bundling with news would actually be a way better deal. Going off the latest data from 2023, mobile users spend less time reading their articles than they do playing their games. The news is being subsidized by these other ventures. Even with that, the Times is considered a miracle. Since 2016, almost every other big American newspaper has been gutted or burnt to the ground. The Times is, in a way, the last bastion of objective journalism. An idea that just isn't taken all that seriously anymore, not even by journalists. Claims of objectivity and balance have always been used to mask biases, and that only works until the mask slips. Look how the Times has treated Gaza. Anyone can see the failure. Over these last few years, management has made it clear what world they're trying to build. It's the kind of world that allows a $10 billion news empire to be passed down from sun to sun to sun, retaining supreme authority. But it's not the kind of world that most people especially want to live in. So I think more and more of us are asking ourselves, if this doesn't serve me, why should I support it? It seems to me like the future is in journalism that's willing to play for the home team and stand for concrete things. That doesn't mean abandoning truth or rigor. I would say in a way it's more truthful. Everyone is actually coming from a place. If you make it clear where that is for you,
guess which event happened first?
I am personally willing to take for granted that war is bad. The prompter just says, second thing. And that everyone should have access to fresh air and clean water. I want to read outlets that agree with me on those things.
All right, let's do this
so
again.
I can move forward as a better steward of those ideas.
I'm not going to waste explosive this time. I think I'll be good.
They're right, and it's actually going great for them. Since I gave up on reading the New York Times, not including for this video, which required me to read, I don't know, probably 50 of their articles, I've been enjoying a number of outlets that exist in service of a specific community and aren't embarrassed about that. I learn about foreign policy from The Intercept and Jewish Currents, culture from Lux and Maisonneuve. Shout out to print magazines, by the way. I get them in the mail. It rules. Tech from Neverpost, games from Aftermath. I could go on.
Yeah, I do support Aftermath.
And I will. Now that I'm back from my trip to the Big Apple, I can recommend a huge number of Canadian outlets. Canadian Dimension, The Maple, Pivot, The Breach. I don't go to these sites to find an echo chamber. Their coverage frequently surprises and challenges me. It leaves me more informed and better at fighting for my world and not ads.
Go for it.
We can win.
There we go.
It's okay to want to win. Support independent media, stand with the New York Times Guild and Tech Guild, and for the love of God, stop paying for Wordle. What are you doing? How many times have these huge media companies turned the public against their own interests? Living under this new system that's constantly finding new panics to stoke, from women to wokeness to immigrants. What does it do to our brains? I recently saw a video that asked these questions in a brand new way. Lindsay Ellis's new project is a look into the conservative psyche through the lens of, get this, police body cam footage. As it turns out, there are hundreds of viral videos of people getting arrested, and a disproportionate number of them are white conservatives.
I don't know if I could finish this today.
Fox or whoever convinced them that the cops would never go after them.
I voted for you. I voted for Trump. I voted for you. It's so...
Oh, I just wasted it, didn't I?
The fact that body cam footage is viral content at all is like kind of troubling. It's part of the same ecosystem that made these people like this. Lindsay handles it with thoughtfulness and nuance in one of my favorite Nebula originals we've ever released. Which is saying something, by the way. We've kind of been killing it lately. Lately, we've been dropping like upward of 10 exclusives every month. Comedy shows, travel shows, documentaries, and more than a few things from yours truly. Nebula is where you can listen to my exclusive film podcast, TS-TV DVD, yep, and get episodes of my TV podcast, TS-TV, 2 weeks early. I cannot be trusted to name things, but what are you going to do? That's the kind of power we have at Nebula. The platform is by creators for creators with no private equity or venture capital involved, which gives us a lot more freedom in the kinds of things we can name a podcast or the kinds of topics we can explore. If you sign up with my link, you can get all this and much more for 50% off on an annual membership. It comes out to $30 a year or $250 a month if you sign up at go.nebula.tv/LilyAlexander. Big things coming. Thank you for watching.
Cool deal. Yeah, I've always been a fan of Lily's content, but the last year has been particularly a particular step up, I feel. Feminizing our body cams. Not our precious body cams. What have they done to us? I dig this. When I was at the Capitol to march a few weeks back, there was like a brass band playing. It was great. We're gonna give this running man one more go. I'm properly stalked. This shall be the end of tonight's run. Let's see what we can do about this guy. Let's not forget where the explosives are set. That's what fucked me up. Gotta put truck nuts on your body cam. All right. Cool. All right. So, boom. Go. Get him to go. Get him to go. And boom. Okay. Hits. Set there. Get him to go. Get him to go. And boom. Okay. Set here. Narrow path. I just have to keep consistent on which. There we go. Cool. I guess I could also be setting it in the corners instead of waiting for him to run by. Okay, I got him right there. Got him right there. Run to the corner. There we go. Boom. I'm just so busy, I'm worried I'm not going to keep minding my health. Let's see. There we go. Cool. 4 of these left. Minding my health. Set this right here. Go. And get him. There we go. I like that more than Fat Man, I'll tell you what. You used my speed against me. What's your name? Snake. Solid Snake. The cheetah has lost to the snake. How could this happen? Man, I wish he was named like the cheetah instead of the running man. Guess you weren't fast enough. Damn, one-liner and he explodes. Card 3 acquired. Oh man, children? What are they doing here? West side of the Zanzibar building's first floor. Okay. West side of the first floor is where I should be going then with my card 3 right when you get back. I hate people who use guns. You know what? Me too, kid. Me too. Alright, gang. Well. I'm gonna save and we're gonna call it there. I will remember next time. West side of building 1. I just got the 3rd card. Thoroughly enjoying Metal Gear 2. Surprising in ways I wasn't expecting, but I should have considering the pedigree of the series. We will be back Thursday with more Spec Ops The Line and the Fort Bragg Cartel. Jacob will be with us then. This Sunday we're gonna be watching Apocalypse Now. Both Spec Ops The Line and Apocalypse Now, heavy referencing Heart of Darkness. I find that piece of synchronicity neat. Until then though, y'all take care, stay safe, good night. Forehead kisses. Also, do not forget to check out the Pixel Goblins tonight. I think they're playing Final Fantasy Tactics Advance. I may be wrong on that.